I belong to a generation of gamers whose childhood was graced by Traveler's Tales' seminal masterpiece, LEGO Star Wars the video game. Never before in my life up to that point had I ever been gifted something that I never knew I wanted so badly. As a child who loved Legos, loved Star Wars, and loved video games, those three things coming together in that way truly blew my mind. Sure, I had Star Wars Legos, I had played Star Wars video games, I'd even played a Lego video game, but all three streams crossing at once just melted my 8-year-old brain. It also helped that the game was, good, and in a household as large as the one I grew up in, multiplayer is an absolute must. And it was a simple enough game on the surface to let the younger siblings drop in and out seamlessly and just hang out with them. The multiplayer alone might just be the game's single best feature in a game full of fantastic features. And then the sequel happened, and was just a superior game to the first in every single way. Better levels, better puzzles, better movies, more character roles, custom characters, and the ability to transfer all the characters from the previous game to this one if you had a completed save file on your memory card? Man, they don't make them like that anymore. I mean, the new one's really good. Great, even. Those old ones hit different, man. But this isn't a nostalgic retrospective, this is a glitch showcase. And let's not sugarcoat it, these are licensed games from the early 2000s on 6th-gen consoles. And as such, they can be buggy messes sometimes. And I love them for it. A lack of polish just kinda comes with the territory and quite frankly, adds to the charm. People have been playing around with the glitches in these games for decades now. A huge amount have been discovered and documented, and have even been worked heavily into speedrun strategies. And being a kid with time on his hands, I discovered a few myself while testing the limits of what these games will let me do. But there's one thing I discovered as a kid while playing the GameCube version of LEGO Star Wars 2: The Original Trilogy that I haven't seen documented anywhere else. And that's why I wanted to share it with you today. I specified the version of the game I played because that's the one I played, and thus I can't vouch for this glitch's presence in other versions of the game. I mean, it's probably there, but I can't be 100% sure, This is the call to action part, where I ask those of you with other versions of the game to try it out at home and let me know in the comments if you could get it to work. For science, obviously. This isn't begging for engagement, I'm just genuinely interested in documenting this. That's all. I mean, if you're gonna like and subscribe, I won't stop you. So without further ado, I give you the LEGO Star Wars glitch that everyone missed. Not because I legit think I'm the only person on God's green earth to have discovered it, or even the first person to post about it online. Rather, that's just a really clickable title. I mean, you're watching this, so it must have worked, right? Okay, actually, I lied. There is some further ado before we get into the glitch I'm actually talking about, because I wanted to give some context as to how I actually discovered it. And it starts with a fairly well-known and well-documented glitch. Throughout the game, as I'm sure most of the people who would click on this video should know, so why am I introducing it like this? There are several vehicles and creatures that you can ride on. Normally there are several characters, but most notably the droids, who are unable to ride them. But there are ways to glitch the game into allowing them to ride. The most common method is to enable the self-destruct cheat. Hop onto the vehicle as someone who can ride it, dismount, swap to the droid you want to drive mid-dismount, and then activate the self-destruct, killing the droid. When you respawn, the game will place your chosen droid on the vehicle in the LEGO equivalent of a T-pose. My favorite of which is the Droidica, because just look at that dude. Look at him. While I'm no expert on the code of this game, what I figure is going on here is that the game likes to place your player character back on their last known stable location when they respawn, which, in this case, was on the vehicle since the player died before they hit the ground and therefore registered a new respawn point in the game's memory. But the self-destruct trick isn't the way I learned this glitch as a kid. No, I had a different setup, and all you need for it is a vehicle and a cliff. When driving a vehicle off of a cliff, the game will automatically eject the player from the driver's seat as a last-ditch opportunity to save yourself. The vehicle itself will be destroyed upon hitting the cliff's death plane and spawn back a bit later, so it doesn't render the level unbeatable in the levels where vehicles are needed for progression. But if you ignore your self-preservation instinct and let yourself fall off the cliff anyway, the vehicle will respawn first, since it hit the death plane first, and then the player will be spawned back in, riding it. So in this setup, you need to be playing a level in free play, drive a vehicle off the cliff, let the game eject you, and swap to the character you want to be in the driver's seat before you hit the death plane. And there you go. Driving droid. Only now you're not limited to droids who can self-destruct. Now, other creatures from the extra toggle gallery and other non-droid, non-writable characters like General Grievous can also get in on the fun. And it was while I was playing around with this bug that I discovered something else. This is a BT-16 perimeter droid. These guys can be found inside Jabba's palace in the first level of episode 6. And you can ride on them. This is a bottomless cliff. Those are the two ingredients we need for my alternate setup to the droid ride glitch. But here's the thing. The BT-16 runs around on its own when it's not being ridden. And that's also true of the tiny interval during the ride glitch setup between when it respawns and when the player respawns. So what do you suppose would happen if the BT-16 were to, say, walk off the cliff again on its own before the player has a chance to respawn? Not a question I ever actively asked myself as a kid, but I nonetheless saw the results when it happened entirely on accident. Yep, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got in this situation. No? You're not? Oh yeah, I just showed you. Oops. Well, that was a misapplication of this meme. I guess there is still the question of exactly why I ended up possessing the body of a BT-16 perimeter droid. Best guess I have is the game tried to respawn me in my last known stable location of mounting the droid, but the droid wasn't loaded. And because the order of operations was mixed up like that, I'm now inside the droid itself. But despite the invisibility and the lack of character icon, the game still registers this as me riding it. Because if you look here, I still have the vehicle's hit points, except not gray for some reason. Plus, if I hit jump or the dismount button, I jump out from inside the droid and all is set back to normal. But as long as you don't do that, you can just run around playing as the spider droid. That's all good silly fun on its own, but I'm not done yet! Press the L or R triggers to swap characters and dismount, and we'll double the offer! Wait, what? Yeah. It seems the game registers this glitch state as simultaneously riding on and playing as the BT-16. Which explains the empty character icon and the fact that the hearts are red instead of gray. So, when I was experimenting with the buttons in this state, I hit the character swap buttons and the spider droid was replaced with other characters I had in the rotation. But I also couldn't swap back to the BT-16 because, well, it's not part of my character lineup for this level. And then, experimenting further with this state, I hit one of the buttons that makes me dismount, and now, this has gotten out of hand.
Now there are two of them.
Even though the character swapped, the game still registers as me riding something. So when I dismount, I've essentially created an NPC duplicate of myself using the spider droid as a host. Thus, I take this opportunity to officially dub this glitch ride cloning. Everybody's got to call it ride cloning now because I was the first guy to give it a name. Probably. Again, I'm not 100% sure. And now the BT-16, or what was once a BT-16, lives out the rest of its days as an NPC that wanders the halls of Jabba's palace following the same pattern the spider droid had before. Just now, not rideable because the game doesn't let you mount people. It's rated E10+. But we're still not done, because this part of the level has not one, not two, but 3 BT-16 perimeter droids patrolling the area. Just be sure to clear out all the enemies beforehand so they don't harass you to make this process easier. Also, if you kill the transfigured droids, they die forever, so don't do that. But as a kid, and even as an adult, I have a lot of fun populating Jabba's palace with NPCs that aren't supposed to be there. Here it is getting invaded by separatist forces. Here it is being invaded by stormtroopers who are dressed for the wrong weather. Here it is being haunted by several sand-hating ghosts of Anakin Skywalker.
I don't like sand.
Here's Comic-Con. A group of Hans is called a McClunky. A group of Palpatines is called a Somehow. And a group of Yodas is called a... Naturally, the next question you'll ask is, will this work on other rideable vehicles and creatures? And the answer to that question is yes, so far. My current hypothesis is that it should work on anything that can be ridden if you can get things to respawn in the correct order, but it's just really difficult to recreate those circumstances. The only ones I got it to work on are this dewback in episode 4 level 2 and this tractor in episode 5 level 4. There are several other possible combinations of vehicles and cliffs that I have tried with no luck. They should theoretically work, but the other vehicles and creatures in this game don't walk around on their own very fast, and are rather resistant to being pushed. I got lucky that this tractor respawns on a slope. A funny thing is, where the NPCs cloned from both the dewback and BT-16 would walk around in a pattern that mimics the original host, the character cloned from the tractor doesn't move because the host object doesn't move on its own. Also, this is what happens when Darth Vader chokes a droideka. Just thought that was funny. But yeah, there's still a number of rideable things adjacent to cliffs that I just can't get to work no matter how hard I try. There's also some levels from the first game that I believe had rideable vehicles added to them in the later Complete Saga release, and maybe you might be able to ride clone with those. But I haven't played that version, so I don't know. I don't even know if ride cloning is still a thing in that version of the game. So, here's call to action number 2. If you can manage to recreate this glitch in another level with another rideable thing, I'd love for you to document it. Capture the footage, walk us through the process, upload it somewhere, and drop the link in the comments. You know, for science. Totally not trying to farm for engagement. Okay. Love you. Bye.